away. Saturday also sees a day of sunny spells and showers, and it will turn colder through the weekend.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Tonight on Farage, we talk all things Leicester. Yes, continuing awful, horrible riots, violent scenes spread last night to Birmingham. We'll debate the issue. How does this end? Because goodness me, it needs to. We'll look at Jacob Rees-Mogg's announcement, support for business. Is it enough? Will it save our pubs and many other businesses? We'll try and find out why Toby Young's Free Speech Union have been cancelled by PayPal. And joining me on Talking Pints, veteran DJ and broadcaster David Diddy Hamilton. But before all of that, let's get the news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you, Nigel. Good evening. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. 5 British nationals who were captured in Ukraine by Russian-backed forces have been released. They're among 10 prisoners of war who've been freed. MP Robert Jenrick says one of those released is British national Aidan Aslin. Prime Minister Liz Truss has thanked Ukrainian President Zelensky and Saudi Arabia for their efforts in securing the release. The US president says the war in Ukraine is about extinguishing the country's right to exist as a state. Joe Biden told the United Nations General Assembly Russia's President Putin has made reckless nuclear threats and criticised Moscow for starting an unprovoked war. His comments come after Putin announced 300,000 military reservists are being called up to fight in Ukraine.
The United States wants this war to end on just terms, on terms we all signed up for, that you cannot seize a nation's territory by force. That the only country standing in the way of that is Russia. We will stand in solidarity with Ukraine. We will stand in solidarity against Russia's aggression, period.
Police say silence is not an option as record £200,000 reward is being offered for information that leads to the conviction of Olivia Pratt-Corbell's killer. The 9-year-old was shot by a gunman who chased his intended target into her home in Liverpool last month. Her mother was also injured during the shooting. £100,000 was offered by a private donor, and Crime Stoppers founder Lord Ashcroft has matched the figure, making it the biggest reward in the charity's history. Energy bills for businesses will be cut to less than half their expected price over winter. A government support package will see wholesale prices capped for non-domestic customers, including schools, hospitals and charities. Business Secretary Jacob Rees-Mogg says there's an urgent need to help struggling companies to prevent them from folding. The Prince of Wales says he takes great comfort in the support of an environmental prize he founded. In a pre-recorded message at the Earthshot Prize Innovation Summit, Prince William says his grandmother would have been delighted to hear about the event.
During this time of grief, I take great comfort in your continued enthusiasm, optimism and commitment to the Earthshot Prize and what we are trying to achieve. Protecting the environment was a cause close to my grandmother's heart, and I know she would have been delighted to hear about this event and the support you're all giving our Earthshot finalists, the next generation of environmental pioneers.
TV, online and DAB plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Farage.
Good evening. Well, last night we talked about what had been going on night after night in Leicester. Violent riots taking place on the street. 24 police officers, even a police dog, injured, and really horrible scenes. And just as we came off air, we got news that in Smethwick, 50 miles away, quite close to Birmingham, something very similar had happened. And just look at these pictures. Just look at these scenes. I mean, it is a riot. It is a violent, threatening mob. Frankly, it's horrendous. Have a look at this. Now you can see chanting, screaming, aggression, and I'm not picking sides in this fight. I'm not saying that the Hindu groups have behaved worse than the Muslim groups or vice versa. What I am saying is I hoped and prayed we would never ever see scenes such as this taking place in British cities. These are religious riots. These are, frankly, race riots. Such are the hatreds displayed between the different groups. Now, thus far, there's been no escalation to other towns and cities, but I don't know where this ends. I'm not sure how this ends. I've got huge sympathy for those police officers that are there. It's extraordinary that so few members of our press corps, be it newspapers or television and radio broadcasters, even want to debate this. The problem, you see, is we've been arguing ever since Tony Blair that all diversity is good, that all immigration is good. We haven't bothered to talk about integration. We haven't bothered to consider what the tensions could be between some of those groups. Now, this has now escalated up into being an international diplomatic incident. But see whether you think the statements by the Indian government or the Pakistani government are helpful in this context. See, the Indian government say that in Leicester, the vandalisation of premises and symbols of the Hindu religion we strongly condemn. And then, of course, if we go to Pakistan, they point out that there has been intimidation unleashed against the Muslims of the area. So the Indian government are sticking up for the Hindu group, the Pakistani government are sticking up for the Muslim group, and I don't know how this ends. I'm asking you for bright ideas. How does this end? Farage at gbnews.uk. Because if this doesn't end, then we're going to finish up with a situation in our cities as bad as it was in Belfast during the Troubles, where we had that horrible sectarianism, violence, and indeed we had deaths on a large scale. I don't know how much this can escalate. I don't want to see British cities turned into Belfast during the Troubles. We need to find some kind of solution. But is it? Could it be too late? Well, joining me now live from Leicester is GB News' home and security editor, Mark White. Mark, I know you've been on the ground all day in Leicester. Please tell us what you've managed to glean and what the prospects are, or not, for further violence.
Well, where I am, Nigel, is in Belgrave Road in East Leicester. It's a predominantly Hindu area and has been the scene of so much of the violence of late. Now, it depends who you speak to, which side you speak to, as to where the blame lies. Effectively, they're both blaming each other, and it's been fueled, so much of it, by social media as well. Without going into who said what to who and what sparked it, we know that it followed a cricket match on the 28th of August between India and Pakistan. There were celebrations that then led to violent scenes, and it's bubbled on ever since, till last weekend when things really came to a head and the police in Leicester were overwhelmed. They had to call on mutual aid from other forces to try to get a handle on the situation, and there is some real concern here that as we head towards the weekend again, we might see a return to the violence. I was speaking earlier to the Police and Crime Commissioner for the area, Rupert Matthews, who assured me that they have reinforcements now on standby from other police force areas for the days ahead, and should the worst happen, they will have enough resources to be able to deal with that. Nigel, they're preparing for Diwali, the annual festival, of course, for the Hindu religion. That's next month. Before that, on Monday, is the festival of Navratri, a 9-day festival, and there's always concern around these particular festivals about the potential for there being trouble. I was speaking to Muslim members of the community and Hindu members of the community throughout the day, and there was some interesting feedback from them about where they see much of the problems of late lying to now, or lying with. Leicester, of course, as a city, prides itself, has always been proud of the fact that this is a multicultural city, but largely harmonious, that those different faith groups have got on pretty well with each other to a certain extent, have integrated over the years. But I was speaking to second generation Muslims and Hindu members of the community here today, and they were telling me that they see an issue with a recent surge in immigration from the Indian subcontinent that has brought with it people, many young people, who have not culturally assimilated, integrated in a way that perhaps people of their generation have. I was speaking earlier to Suleiman Naqdi, one of the Muslim leaders. This is what he told me.
In recent years, we've had a new migration that's come in over the last 4 or 5 years. Now, I don't wish to stereotype a particular section of the community, but that community came from a different background, and therefore their understanding and the norms of British society may be different to that of mine. And I think we have not built the bridge between that community and ourselves, and hence I think the problem lies at every section of society.
No, Suleiman and members of the Hindu community have acknowledged.
Yeah, very interesting, because I notice that when it comes to giving out work visas, student visas, family reunions, the subcontinent is the top of the list. So there are very large numbers of people coming into Leicester and other places coming fresh. Can I just finally ask you, Mark, what plans do the police have to deal with this? I mean, is it a case of having to put on mass arrests at the weekend if this starts again? What actually is their plan?
Well, there was criticism of the police in the sense that the worst of the disorder was on Saturday, but there were only 2 arrests from that. But I think we shouldn't rush to blame the police on that, because initially there were very few resources. The resources came eventually from other neighbouring forces, but what they do when there is mass disorder like this is they just try to get a control, a handle on that situation, push the sides that are facing up against each other back to try and ensure that there's no violence, that no one else is hurt, including, of course, themselves. The arrests can come at a later date, and they will. They're there, they've got video cameras videoing evidence gathering cameras, CCTV as well, and of course mobile phone pictures that people have been taking as well. They will catch up with these people in the fullness of time. But in the meantime, they will have more resources for this coming weekend. Just going back to that point from the community there and about the assimilation, both sides of the community acknowledged to me, Nigel, that there is more in the way of assimilation that both of their communities, even second generation, could do to ensure that people get on a bit better with each other. But they are very concerned
I tell you what,
the new wave of immigration coming through.
No, very powerful. Mark, thank you for that. Really interesting. Well, I'm going to put those points right now directly to Andrew Bridgen, who is a Conservative Member of Parliament for North West Leicestershire. And Andrew, the point that is being made quite strongly, the work that Mark White's done on the ground today, it is the recent and again, massive waves of migration into this country under a Conservative government that is leading to so many of these tensions. What say you?
Well, ghettoisation is bad and integration is good, and I think a lot of the points that have been raised so far in your programme are very relevant to the situation we find ourselves in. Leicester is the most ethnically diverse city in the UK, and it's has a happy history of coexistence. Why now? I think it's a mixture of reasons. We do have, I think, an influx of more recent migrants who perhaps hold stronger views and perhaps have less respect for their community elders, which is disappointing, but not unique to ethnic minority groups. The rise of the internet, Nigel, this is coordinated, and the internet and social media allows the gathering of these groups. And there are extremists coming in from all over the country, exacerbating the situation in Leicester. It's interesting that of the 47 people arrested so far, almost half of them are not even from the city of Leicester. So it's being coordinated from outside. Also, there's a lot of fake news out there on social media, making claims of various attacks from one group against another. And quite honestly, most of them, when they're analysed by the police, they actually didn't happen. But of course, a lie's halfway around the world before the truth can get its boots on. We need a equal implementation of the law of the land across all communities in Leicester, a zero tolerance approach, and that's what I believe Leicestershire Police and our Police and Crime Commissioner are going to implement. And obviously the reason for that in part is we don't want any contagion.
No, absolutely. We saw some last night, and that was disturbing. Andrew Bridgen, zero tolerance is what you're advocating. Thank you for giving us that point of view. Well, I want to give both communities or community leaders a chance to say something about this, because I'm deeply worried about it. I'm sure you at home watching and listening are worried about it too. And I'm joined by Dr. Sheikh Ramzi, Imam and Director of the Oxford Islamic Information Centre. Thank you for joining me. As I say, the statements that have come from the governments of India and Pakistan are hardly helpful, are they really?
No, it's not helpful. Of course, what we are trying to, Nigel, is what happened in Leicester was as unimaginable, especially when we are all the countries and all the world mourning for Her Majesty the Queen. It was, I believe, of course. Before I started, of course, I would like to say I respect all Indians. I love all Indians, and I totally respect their religion.
Well, Dr. Ramzi, you may, but isn't the truth of it, and you may, but isn't the truth of it that actually there are huge dislikes between large sections of the Muslim population and large sections of the Hindu population? That's the same in the subcontinent. Haven't we just imported it here?
No. It was, yes. Of course, that's a different things which we have. At the moment, I believe the people, the Hindus which they attacked, they were RSS and trained by RSS. Unfortunately, the RSS, if you look at it some time ago, of course, Jon Snow was investigating what happened to RSS and what the money from here, even from Leicester. Leicester is an organization called HSWA, which is a charity organization, send the money to RSS and train them. And our children here been groomed to go on RSS.
Are you saying to me this is the fault of the Hindu community?
I believe this absolutely is the fault of the Hindu community because I've got the reason. Because in India, the RSS wants the Hindus be a first religion. There is nobody else.
Why should we, in an English Midlands city, be paying the price for what's happening in India?
Yes, you're absolutely right, because we told the government, and I told the government again, and I told the government many times with many of the Muslim MPs that what is happening is wrong. Can you stop it? Can you stop the RSS? Because they knew the RSS training our young people here.
No, I hear you. How does this end?
This ends badly. This will end. Is a start. Is not end. Is a start. Unless the government, the UK intervene in the situation of the Kashmir and situation of the 25 million Muslim, which has been said you are not a citizen of the, after 100 years or so, you are not a citizen of the India. That means RNC, they do not give. They said, the government of India said everybody can have a citizenship except a Muslim. Now you look at it yourself.
Dr. Ramsey, thank you.
Pleasure.
For your frank words, worrying words.
Pleasure.
But frank words.
I would like to tell the government, of course, government, please, help and intervene before we have another Ukraine.
Well, we've heard the case put, and it was a fairly depressing conclusion, given that I'm trying here to debate how does this end. But from the sounds of it, it isn't going to end any time soon. Well, I made it very, very clear that I wanted both communities to have their say, and that's absolutely what we do here at GB News. You know, I'm appalled that this is going on in an English city, and really worried after those words from Dr. Ramsey about where we're going to go. Well, I'm joined now by Alpesh Patel, OBE Chair of City Hindus. Thank you for coming in. Now, you heard what Dr. Ramsey said.
I was a bit surprised. It was so nice to me in the green room. Hang on, I'm being knifed in the back here. It was all my fault, apparently.
My pronunciation's not very good, but Jai Shri Ram is, it's alleged, what is being chanted by groups of Hindus, which is a supremacist, racist chant against Muslims.
Oh, sorry, I have to laugh at that. So each morning when I do, peace be with you is what the Catholics would say in church. Jai Shri Ram, each morning when I do my prayers, I would say exactly the same.
And Muslims take that to be a supremacist word? No?
Well, if they take that to be supremacist, they've got a problem with just me being Hindu. Which I apologise. By the way, I think you're wrong. They don't.
Isn't that the point?
They don't. There's a small group who dressed all in black, wore the mask, you know, quack like a duck, walk like a duck, so I'll call them the jihadis. They have a problem with anybody being Catholic, Jewish or Hindu. That group, because my Pakistani Muslim, the nanny who looks after my son, who's a Pakistani Muslim, she doesn't have a problem with me saying Jai Shri Ram because I have to do the prayers each morning.
Fair enough.
Right? So, and I know you agree with me on that, but we don't want to do that broad brush.
Let's get to the heart of it. Let's get to the heart of this. There are genuine hatreds and tensions between these communities in the Indian subcontinent. And as a result...
No,
just hear me through. As a result of large-scale immigration and the creation of big, separate communities now being added to by huge numbers of work permits being given out. We've actually done this to ourselves in this country, but is it reasonable? Is it reasonable that the politics of a subcontinent should play out night after night in Leicester? Is that reasonable?
Let me just unravel a bit of that.
All right.
So you're right. In Pakistan, when Imran Khan was Prime Minister, there was a lot of antagonism towards Hinduism. They're sort of being wiped out, okay? In India, where 15% of the population is Muslim, where there have been Muslim presidents, the father of the nuclear bomb in India, Muslim.
A long time ago.
he only passed away about 3 years ago, and fated by this existing Prime Minister. No, my point is, well, no, he was fated by Prime Minister Modi.
Go on, keep going.
So I go to India 8 times a year. I don't recognise that narrative. I'm from Gujarat, which is supposed to have the major tensions. So let's just say, yeah, OK, there are little pockets of those things ever since the British left, when you were the unifying force that we could all agree to hate. So after you guys left, yes, you're right, there were a few problems. We should take you to Leicester and you can unify both communities again. So the immigration point, it don't come off. So I'm not going to argue against immigration. My mother was an NHS nurse here. My grandfather fought in the British Army, and my great-grandfather fought in the British Army. And you can probably tell from my accent.
And we respect that.
I was born here. I think we need more Indians, because you know what? We're the caricature. The accountants, the doctors, the lawyers, the shopkeepers that you all laugh at.
Do we want more Leicesters? Do we want more Smethwicks? Or do we need to think about this again?
I think we want more respect and law and order, and we want fewer jihadis. I've just come from the 9/11 memorial, and I'm saying jihadis because when I see a group of men dressed in black and wearing black masks, OK, shouting at a little Indian woman in a sari coming out of the temple, because we Indians are rubbish at fighting. We give you Mahatma Gandhi, non-violence.
But it's funny, because the Muslim Council of Britain say that actually there are far-right elements within your community. I mean, here we are.
Yeah, what, the ISIS, Taliban and Al-Qaeda of the Hindu community? Please, could you tell me where they are?
I take the point.
I look for them, but I can't find them.
Look,
is it in Syria? Is it in Iraq?
I take the point.
Have you seen the poor lady in Iran dancing, taking off her hijab?
How do we find a solution to this? Because otherwise, what I said earlier about Belfast, with those sectarian divides and violence, are going to go on for goodness knows how many years.
We don't want to happen in what's happened in that part of Britain.
Yes.
Because
no, I don't want it to happen.
Because it's ungovernable.
How do we stop it?
I think we do. Actually, we take a lesson from the miracle that is actually India, where you've got such a large group of Christians, Muslims, Hindus living together, 1.3 billion. Now, if you can sort that out, you can certainly sort out a few 100,000 in Leicester, and it's mutual respect. It's mutual respect, and get rid of the extremists and the jihadis. And hopefully they're on the security services are watching the jihadis who want to become TikTok stars and talking about hatred. Kill the social media
stuff. You made your point
it.
very, very strongly, and I thank you for coming in. Love to hear your views. In a moment, we're going to find out, were Jacob Rees-Mogg's promises to business on energy enough to keep the pubs open?
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Business and Energy Secretary, made a statement today, a long-awaited statement, because we know what's going to happen to domestic bills. We didn't know what was going to happen to business bills, charity bills, hospital bills. Let's hear what Jacob Rees-Mogg said this morning.
We've announced the non-domestic support package, which means that the wholesale price for electricity will be £211 per megawatt, and for gas will be £75 per megawatt. And from that, customers will then get their prices. So it is providing for the non-domestic market, which includes schools and hospitals, charities and businesses, something that is equivalent to the support for the domestic sector. What we needed now, immediately, quickly, was something simple that would give people confidence through the winter. What we will have is a review in 3 months' time, which will allow us to see that we are giving support in the right places and that we can ensure that continued support, if that's necessary, is directed at where it needs to go. This is a burden that would fall on the economy one way or another. And the question is, should it fall on individuals and on businesses who simply cannot afford it? Or is it something that has to be borne collectively on a balance sheet that can bear it? And it seems to me it's obvious that it has to fall.
Well, Simon Cleary is landlord of the Plough in Great Chesterford in Essex, and we had Simon in the other week, and he was saying, well, goodness me, the bills are going through the roof. I've no idea where it's going to stop. What Jacob Rees-Mogg has done today, and you're not just speaking for your pub, you're speaking for pubs, bakers, I mean, millions of businesses all over the country. So what did you think to it? What did he have to say?
It's a good start, Nigel. The prices that are being bandied around, we're not sure if we're actually going to get to those limits that he was mentioned have been released by the government today.
These are the wholesale prices.
The wholesale prices. So that there's a bit of ambiguity still there because we don't know what the wholesale prices are going to be. But generally, you have to accept that it's a bold move by the government. It's going to cost a lot of money. I don't want to be churlish and ungrateful, as does anybody in business at the moment. But the devil is going to be in the detail. We need those finer details to come out in the next few weeks. And then we're going to know whether.
And I guess the finer details are that you're not paying wholesale price, you're paying a retail price through a supplier.
Yes, that is the finer details.
And there are standing charges and add-ons and possibly even peak pricing.
Yeah, I mean, in very simple terms, I spoke to my sister today, Gemma, who's an energy broker. I said, I've recalculated everything and I think we're going to be paying this. And she said, no, hold on, Simon. It's not as simple as that. It's far more complicated. She explained lots to me about how it works, which I couldn't repeat now because it gone in there and gone out there. But yes, it's good news, and we welcome it. But whether it's going to be enough to take a dreadful situation and completely smooth it out, I don't think so. It's going to help, but I think we're still in for a very rough winter.
Yes, but hopefully this will be enough to keep pubs open and other shops open. Some may go, but this should keep most of you open.
I think this will keep most pubs and most businesses afloat during the winter. The only other thing I'd say is, of course, it's only been announced for 6 months, which is disappointing. It's a lifeline. We grab hold of it. We're grateful for that life jacket being thrown to us, but we wait to see how long it lasts.
Simon Cleary, I think you're speaking on behalf of a lot of people tonight here on GB News. But hey, they've done something.
They've done something.
Without it, goodness knows what would have happened.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And we're going to come back to you again in a few weeks' time. You are our guinea pig in all of this. All right. So we'll follow your progress.
I know the way here now.
Good. Very good, Simon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed. Now, it could have been one of the dramatic moments of the November 2020 election in the United States of America. It was the Hunter Biden laptop. But the New York Times, CNN, and many, many others, well, they didn't believe that it was a genuine article. Well, there's a film that is out, and it is My Son Hunter, and it's been sponsored by Breitbart. Let's see a clip of this film that's just been released.
What kind of a moron forgets to pick up his laptop at the repair shop? I want to know everything that's on that laptop that can ruin my erection.
I can't seem to find anything but positive stuff on the Bidens.
Who's the point man for the foreign policy in the Obama regime? Joe Biden. So it looks like you need $1 billion. I can remember getting paid some money, but I can't remember what for. Well, my dad says we never discuss my businesses, period. Or my cut.
You had everything, Hunter, and you threw it all away. You hope the laptop will take down everybody with you.
I am the one who brings in all the deals. I am the one.
Or
Well, you might have spotted that the star of the film is, of course, well, it's Lawrence Fox, leader of the Reclaim Party. He joins me in the studio now. Looks like quite a spicy film, Lawrence. Politically, I mean, it appears that film is making very big claims, not just about Hunter Biden's business activities, and we know about the money that he got from Moscow, Beijing, and, of course, Ukraine in particular. But the implication even from there is that there's Joe Biden asking for his cut. This is pretty near the mark stuff, isn't it?
Well, I think that the 10% for the big guy is verified as well, isn't it? And what is most interesting about it is Hollywood has a long heritage of making great political movies. You know, the Wag, the Dogs, the Bulworths, the JFKs, all of this sort of stuff. And you'd expect Hollywood to be on this like a, you know...
Yeah.
But they're not, and therefore that makes me even more suspicious, you know, in this world of suspicion. I just go, why are you not wanting to make a film about this? So it's taken these very brave filmmakers to make this movie, and you know, it's really annoying everyone because it's doing really well on Rotten Tomatoes and getting all the wrong reviews. And it has received the fabled 1-star Guardian review, which means you've done something right.
Oh, really? Oh, well done.
Yeah, thank you. Praise the Lord.
So how do we access this film?
You go to mysonhunter.com, and I think I haven't done it because I got a free one.
Well, of course,
thank heavens.
Of course.
And you get a 6-digit thing to your phone, and then you can turn it on. Breitbart's first movie.
Do you believe that Joe Biden is corrupt?
Yes, I do. I think all politicians are corrupt to a degree.
Fair enough.
But what I think is what's so wonderful about the world and the West and democracy and curiosity is that when corruption is seen in the West, there are people that go after it and they investigate it and they drag it into the light. And I think the Biden family have avoided, you know, and to the extent where you could look at...
Well, there was an election on.
Well, this is where it becomes extremely spooky, because if this story had not been suppressed by big tech and by their friends in the mainstream media, this could really have affected, and has been polled to show that it would have affected people's voting patterns in the 2020 election, which is already highly contested as it is. And you think, at the very least, what they've done is rigged an election. That's at the very least what they've done.
Well, it's a big call. Everybody else in mainstream media will be horrified that those words have been spoken here on GB News, but it's an opinion. You can agree, you can disagree. Now, there's one more thing, as Columbo used to say. I am off for the next 2 weeks. I've only had 4 days off so far this year, so don't begrudge me. I'm off for the next 2 weeks. I'm off to Australia, doing a bit of a tour. And I have a stand-in for me for that period of time, and it is one Lawrence Fox. Looking forward to it, Lawrence?
I'm terrified. I've got to fill your shoes. You've had 30 years of this experience, but I will do my best, I promise you.
It's going to be just great. Lawrence Fox, thank you very much indeed. Now, of course, free speech is something you would have thought was a given in our society, but it's become less so as the years have gone by. Well, one man who's always made a bit of a stand on these issues is, of course, Toby Young, and he is founder of the Free Speech Union, and it's an organisation that stands up for people who get sacked for standing up for their principles. Well, extraordinarily, we've got the news overnight that PayPal have now basically banned the Free Speech Union. What is it? What has Toby Young... I mean, he's often in trouble anyway, but what has Toby Young done this time? What's the story, Toby?
Yeah, well, the story is, Nigel, I found out last week that my personal PayPal account had been cancelled.
Your personal PayPal?
Personal account I've had since 2013 because I had supposedly violated PayPal's acceptable use policy. No more detail offered than that. If you look at the policy, it's incredibly long. I mean, I had no idea what I'd done wrong. But I thought, well, it's not the end of the world. Had about 600 quid in it. Couldn't access that. They say they'll keep that for 180 days in case they need to extract damages from you for violating their policy. But not the end of the world. Then a few minutes later, I got another email saying that the PayPal account of the Daily Skeptic, the news publishing website I set up 2.5 years ago, was also being closed for the same reason. No detail offered.
And money frozen?
And money frozen initially, but I was able to get that money out.
OK.
And then a few minutes later, the bombshell, the Free Speech Union's PayPal account was being shut down. No notification, no notice at all. I'd been charged, tried, found guilty and convicted, sentenced all at the same time, no possibility of parole. And that was a real headache because I don't think it's the end of the Free Speech Union, but about a third of our members are paying their recurring membership dues using PayPal as their payment processor. So we've had to contact all those members and say, you've got to switch to another processor because your payments aren't going through if you're using PayPal. And that's a real headache, and it means we're going to lose some revenue. It means that there are going to be some people we're not going to be able to help.
But I think we know the reason why, don't we, Toby? We know the reason why this is. This was a stance you took on what was happening in schools and the introduction of transgender ideas to young children. That was what you stood up, or you defended people who were prepared to say that was
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think that's
just tell the audience a little bit more about what's been happening.
Yeah, well, that's an important distinction. I think, we exist to defend people with a vast range of different points of view. We're a non-partisan organisation, provided what they say is lawful, and if they get into trouble for saying it, we'll defend them.
Regardless of their left-right stance.
We don't necessarily approve of what they say.
Sure.
We say we take no position on it.
Yes.
But we will defend your right to say it. We'll defend your right to free speech.
Voltairean principles.
Voltairean principles. So we've defended gender-critical feminists who've got into trouble for challenging trans rights dogma, for being no platform by university campuses, by student activists who've claimed that, they're saying that they don't think trans women should be able to compete against women in women's sports or access women's refuges, makes them feel unsafe, undermines their well-being, makes them feel depressed and suicidal, and for that reason they should be no platformed. We've defended a lot of people like that. About a fifth of the people asking for the Free Speech Union's help are feminists who've got into trouble for defending women's rights. It's extraordinary, but that's where we are today. That may be the reason. It may be that someone at PayPal has decided they don't want those people to be defended. But I think it's a new low, Nigel. We're used to people expressing contentious political views being cancelled, deplatformed, demonetised. But to demonetise an organisation that merely defends people's right to express those views,
rather than giving an opinion,
rather than expressing those views itself, that's a new low.
I think I agree with you. I think it is a new low. And what's to stop other processors from not acting in the same way?
And we're not the only organisation PayPal has done this to. There are about half a dozen similar organisations that have been cancelled in exactly the same way, violating the acceptable use policy, whatever that means. That's the accusation in the past couple of weeks. And I think what we're seeing, Nigel, is the emergence of a Chinese-style social credit system, except instead of the acceptable ideological dogma being enforced by the Chinese Communist Party, it's being enforced by woke capitalist corporations like PayPal.
Toby Young, the one thing I know about you is you will go on fighting.
We will fight back.
No, good.
Make no mistake.
Good. I'll be right behind you. Thank you for coming in and explaining it. Well, it's absolutely awful. In a moment, it's time for Talking Pints. I'll be joined by the veteran broadcaster, David Diddy Hamilton.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales
And Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Just to make the point, PayPal say they do not comment on individual cases. Now, enough of that. It's time for the first drink of the day. It's Talking Pints. David Diddy Hamilton. Welcome to Talking Pints.
Thank you very much indeed.
Now, before we do anything,
yeah.
I always thought you were called Diddy Hamilton because you were on the shorter side, but there's actually a much better story here.
Well, actually, it was working with Ken Dodd on a series for ITV called Doddy's Music Box back in the swinging 60s. And it was a show that featured some of the pop stars of the day, people like Dusty Springfield, Matt Monro, Billy Fury, dotted between which was sketches with a repertory of actors. And I was the interviewer, the straight man, if you like. And during rehearsals, for the first time, I met Ken on the set, and he realised that he was a few inches taller than me, and he saw me as his latest Diddy man. So during rehearsals, he called me Diddy David. And the people who were in the studio, the makeup artists, the props boys, the cameramen, all chuckled to see their announcer, because I was an announcer at the time, being debunked in this way. And in fairness to him, he took me to one side afterwards, and he said, "Do you mind me calling you that?" He said, "Because if you do, I won't do it anymore." And he said, "If you don't mind, I think it'll stick." So I said, "I don't mind," and I've been stuck with it now for 55 years.
Doddy made you Diddy, and yes, that's what everyone knows you are. Now, a remarkable career. I mean, you start off with British Forces Broadcasting Radio during national service, and here we are, 63 years later, and you're on Boom Radio, which I understand is going quite well. And in the intervening years, you've done television, you've done radio, you've done Top of the Pot. I will come to all of that. But what really interests me, David, is actually, you've got a PhD in organic chemistry. I mean, you're a scientist. You're a man whose career was going to be devoted to looking at curing diseases and all the rest of it. What happened?
Well, as you mentioned, I was called up for my national service in the RAF. I had been working as a scriptwriter at ATV, and I was posted to Germany. And the local radio station there was the Cologne end of Two-Way Family Favourites, which was the big record show at the time. So I went to see the boss there. I'd only been in Germany for a couple of days, and I went to the studio in Cologne, and I said, "Look, I'm a writer. Can you use me at your station?" So he said, "Well, we don't actually employ writers, but we do need somebody to read the football results." So that was the first thing I did, and I knew it was all about inflection. Crystal Palace 1, Fulham 2. Sorry, Nigel. Sorry.
It's all right, I got it. We're going to come back to Fulham, don't worry.
That's in Dreamland.
But I mean, you could have been, you could have spent this career, as a scientist, as a medical researcher, and
Where have you got that from?
Yeah, well, that's what I've been told. Is it wrong?
Yes.
Is it? Well,
I was never academic in any way at all.
No, really?
Well, my father was a journalist, and we're a writing family, so I was a scriptwriter. And I would still have been a scriptwriter had I not got to Germany. But I must tell you that after a few days of reading the football results, I said to the boss of the station one day, I said, "This music that you play," I said, "Peggy Lee and Bing Crosby, it's fine for the officers, but the troops want rock and roll." So he said to me, "How do you know?" And I said, "Because I am a troop." So I don't think he knew what rock and roll was.
So rock and roll was brand new?
It was brand new. Yeah, it was 1959. So he said, "I'll tell you what, I'll give you a show on Sunday afternoon and we'll see how it goes." So I played the music of Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, who was in Germany at the same time doing his national service with the US Army.
That's quite revolutionary stuff at the time.
Yeah, I think Elvis was in Frankfurt and I was in Cologne, so I didn't meet him. And the troops absolutely loved it. One of the first radio shows to play rock and roll. And because the boss was very embarrassed about radiating rock and roll to the troops, he followed the show with a speech by the Padre. So the Padre came on and cleansed their sins for listening to this pagan music.
and you go on, and you're there at the because the birth of Radio 1. I mean, when people like Tony Blackburn, who've been out stuck in the North Sea, and they're back, and Radio 1 gets launched, and quite an exciting moment, I'd have thought.
Very much so, because at that time it was really the only radio station, apart from Radio Luxembourg at night. So the audiences were enormous, something like about 15 million. And in the mid-70s, my show was on Radio 1 and Radio 2. The BBC had one of their periodical cuts, so I was on both stations at the same time. It's sort of kind of hybrid program. But it was a fantastic... I mean, DJs at that time were, you know, really as well known as the stars whose...
Absolutely.
Whose music
absolutely.
they were
Well, Tony Blackburn's still doing it too, isn't he?
Indeed.
The sounds of the 60s.
You know, you promised you wouldn't use bad language. You promised me that.
What makes a good DJ? What makes a good TV presenter?
Well, it's very hard to say that. What makes a good DJ? I think, as with television, you have to remember that, particularly with radio, you're talking to one person. You're not talking to a group of people. It's very different from stage appearances. So if you have I think of a friend. It could be male, it could be female, but I think of somebody, if they're listening to my show, then in some way they must like me. And I think you've got to try and be a little bit different from anybody else. When I started out, my broadcasting hero was Pete Murray. And I listened to Pete on Radio Luxembourg. And Pete, by the way, last weekend was 97.
Wow.
And is still going, and he's going to do a program for us on Boom at Christmas time.
Oh, fantastic! No, I mean, listen, good for you, and I'm very excited that Boom is doing as well as it is.
It is.
I mean, Top of the Pops. That must have been just huge in its day.
Well, once again, you know, Top of the Pops had huge audiences, but the BBC in those days were very, very careful with their money. And the most that I ever got for hosting Top of the Pops, remember, this is a national peak time show, 15 million viewers maybe, 90 quid.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I used to do a disco in a pub in the Old Kent Road, and I get about 3 times as much money for working to 200 people. And I used to think, how can this be right? But of course, Top of the Pops and Radio 1 gave you the shop window, but in those days, to earn, you know, fairly decent money, we had to travel the country doing the clubs.
Or speaking engagements or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, David, 63 years you've been doing this, 63 years. You show almost no signs of wanting to slow up in any way at all.
No.
You're still busy as hell. Do you still enjoy it the way you used to?
I love it. I really love my work. I mean, why would I retire? I think you only retire from something that you don't enjoy. But a job that, I mean, I love to go to work. I mean, I'm actually broadcasting from home now. We started during lockdown, and we're all broadcasting from home. I think a lot of people are getting an idea now. They don't need, particularly with radio, don't need studios anymore. You can do it from your attic or your shed in the garden. But so, I don't have any travelling. But I remember a quote of the great George Burns, who, worked well into his 90s. And he said when he was 90 odd, getting on for 100, he said, "You can't die when you've got another booking."
Yeah.
And I've got plenty of bookings.
Yeah. He also said on his 100th birthday, didn't he? If I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd have looked after myself. With a big cigar and all the rest of it.
Those quotes of those old pros are just wonderful, aren't they? I mean, I love them. And of course, I work with Doddy, I work with Tommy Cooper and Benny Hill as well. So I had the privilege of working with some of the great comedians. I remember a sketch I did with Benny Hill. You would love this. It was a male beauty contest. I was the compere with Dickie Bow and the Smart Whistle, and he came on in lycra shorts, and he gave me a wonderful line, and I introduced him, and I said, "Please welcome our first contestant, Ivor Biggin from Mill Hill." And Benny came out and he said, "No, I'm Ivor Mill from Biggin Hill."
No, well, you were involved in all of that, and Tommy Cooper, well, that must have been a real honour to work with him.
Tommy Cooper, yeah, I mean, there were some great stories about Tommy. Like a lot of comedians, he was a little bit tight. They're all a little bit careful with their money. And apparently, whenever he took a taxi, he would say to the cabbie at the end of the drive, "Have a drink on me," give him a tea bag. So you can imagine when he got, never guess who I had in my cab today. Tommy, did he give you a tip? Yes, love.
David, I mean, and Fulham FC, a big passion. We sort of teased it earlier, didn't we?
Yes, Fulham FC.
And you've been there as an announcer.
I was a Fulham supporter from the age of about 8, and then I was a director of the club in the 70s, and then during the Mohammed Al Fayed era with your friend Michael Cole, who's been on the show a lot. He was there. He was, I think, the Mohammed Al Fayed's PR man at that time. I was the match day, what was called the match day MC for 18 seasons, during which we had 3 promotions. We had a European final in Hamburg where I got stuck on a cherry picker. They put me up on a cherry picker in front of the Fulham fans behind the goal, and it was very nearly kick-off time, and the thing shuddered and it wouldn't go down, and I don't like heights, and I thought, I'm up here for the night. You know, it was a nasty moment. But Fulham have very kindly, they do a thing called Forever Fulham, where at half-time they get ex-players come on the pitch and they give them a special award. And once a year they do it for non-players. And in a couple of weeks' time, they're giving me the Fulham Forever Award on the pitch. So I'm really...
Fantastic.
It's the Bournemouth game. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Now, you've had a medical diagnosis recently, but as with everything you do, you're just carrying on.
Well, this is why I'm drinking water today. I just had a routine blood test, and they told me that I had a blood condition called PV. That's the abbreviation of it. And basically, I've got too many red blood cells. The problem is, Nigel, I'm too red-blooded. I've known this for a long time.
He's used that line before.
It's been confirmed by the medics. Anyway, I've got to say that the NHS have been fantastic. Good. I was rushed into hospital in Guildford, and they're all on the NHS. They've been absolutely terrific. And what they do is they take blood from you, and they take a pint of blood from your arm. The only problem is that my veins disappeared many years ago, and they've had trouble taking blood. So I said to them, the problem is you can't get blood out of a stone. I said, ask my wife and she'll tell you. But anyway, what they do now is to save doing that, and I came out there with like a sort of, all these like a hedgehog with all these pricks in me. Pardon the expression.
That's all right, we'll live with it.
What they do now is they put me on chemo, so I take chemo pills, and the only side effect I found is that I do get a little bit tired, but apart from that, I've been fine, and I drink a lot of water.
Yeah,
so
Diddy Hamilton, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on Talking Pints. Fantastic career.
Thank you very much.
You've clearly loved every minute of it. You're clearly still loving it. You brought great entertainment to huge numbers of people. I thank you for coming.
The first 60 years are the hardest.
Okay, I'll remember that. That's it from me. I'm off for the next fortnight. Yes, my first big break since GB News launched. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Mark Dolan will now take over.
Busy show. Many thanks, Nigel. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 7. It's Mark Dolan in for Mark Stein, who returns on Monday. Is the COVID pandemic officially over? That's the view of Joe Biden. We'll speak to Britain's top statistician to find out more. Is this nightmare finally behind us? Speaking of nightmares, will Russia nuke Ukraine? We'll speak to a top Ukrainian politician with more. And should Holly and Phil be axed by ITV for their alleged queue jumping? We'll ask TV star Leilani Dowding. Has the halo slipped for Britain's most squeaky clean TV partnership? Another day, another assault on free speech. Parents groups speaking up for kids during lockdown. Us for Them has been defunded. We'll speak to their co-founder for a GB News exclusive. And in my big opinion monologue, why woke activists are trying to sexualise your children and are starting at school. I've got a truly horrific story for you. The forecast for the show is stormy with some lightning. But first, here's the actual weather.
Hello again, I'm Aidan McGibbon from the Met Office. Rain in the north during the next 24 hours, but dry in the south with some fog patches first thing on Thursday, clearing to sunny spells by the afternoon. High pressure remains close to the south of the UK, but through the day we've seen Weather fronts push into the northwest. Now, much of the rain during Wednesday has been confined to the far north and west of Scotland, but that won't remain the case because overnight we're going to see the rain turn heavier and steadier across the northwest, and it'll push into the rest of Scotland as well as Northern Ireland during the hours of darkness. To the south of that, for much of England and Wales, clear spells for many. Not for all, though. There will be some areas of cloud floating about. But with light winds, and where we get those clear spells, temperatures will fall into the single figures, and we'll even see some mist and fog patches about first thing Thursday, clearing away by 8 or 9 a.m, and then some bright or sunny spells for many, the Midlands, East Anglia, southern England, southeast Wales as well. But elsewhere across Wales into northern England, well, it's going to turn cloudy and increasingly wet with some heavy rain in places, particularly Cumbria and North Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland, after the early rain, turn drier and brighter, although the rain lingering for some time in the south of Scotland until at least Thursday evening. For much of Thursday night then, clear skies for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and eventually Northern England, West Wales see those clear skies. But elsewhere across England and Wales, well, that's where the rain pushes through, and with the cloud and a gusty breeze, temperatures will hold up at 12 to 14 Celsius, whilst we'll see single figures for Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland. A bright start, nevertheless, for the north and the west on Friday. Scattered showers pushing in from the northwest initially, but then developing fairly widely, and there'll be some heavy, even some more prolonged showery rain in the southeast as that front slowly clears away. Saturday also sees a day of sunny spells and showers, and it will turn colder through the weekend.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales
and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity.